talk about whatever it is you'd like to talk about, maybe starting with over 800,000 deaths in the United States been attributed to COVID-19. And if I just toss this in at the beginning, I do believe... Sorry. John, that's
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if any of your research has indicated this, please, if it has gone against this, what I'm about to say, please let me know so I can stop talking about it. But I'm seeing a lot of manipulation and interpretation of words and things like, biological race is absolute. That's abandoned. That's an obsolete point of view. That's not science. I'm thinking this China virus is actually a genetic weapon that can be targetable to specific genomes. That's it.
Well, that is a very plausible course of action. Let's quickly review for our listeners, John. The COVID-19 was a deliberate biological attack on the world and on the United States with the complicity of U.S. people such as Dr. Fauci with a gain of function that we were funding to the Wuhan Virology Lab number 4. That was followed up by a massive cyber warfare attack on our election system in 2020, in which the Chinese, using American technology, a CIA program called Hammer and Scorecard, manipulated the data in the 6 key battleground states. Just as a reminder, they are Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. And that got us an unconstitutional government with a doofus for a president. I've never called an American president a doofus, but does everybody understand he could not handle a press conference if it was a tough one? He can't read off the teleprompter. And so what we have got now, and by the way, this is called unrestricted warfare in the Chinese People's Liberation Army doctrine. So this is their plan. They are not planning on using kinetic warfare. I have said on your station before, John, we're either in World War III or we are in Cold War II. I believe it's World War III has started. And your particular point on the vax, is the vax a targeted biological attack on the American people? We started out saying 800,000 deaths almost with COVID-19. Probably they are by now. But easily, when you consider the second biological attack that has come on us, and that's the drug warfare that has just scourged 100,000 deaths this year. So you can see we are in a war, and so many different things are thrown up against the American people. No borders in the southern thing. Massive hyperinflation. These massive budgets. Build back better. All that is the front door to communism, I assure you. And they have confused the American people because there are so many things. If Biden won the election with 80 million votes, then the Democrats would be demanding that we audit all 50 states. Instead, we have thousands of Democrat lawyers protesting any audit on the 6 battleground states and any other states. And it was massive. There are a massive number of people involved. And so that's what we are facing. We've got a shadow government in the United States, which is being run by Barack Obama. He's the puppet master. All his people are in place. The people in the government mostly are all Biden people. They're in the same mode of operation that they were in when Obama was president. Racial strife continuously, right? Everything's racial. The CRT, critical race theory, going on in the military, with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff worried about white rage. That is absolutely ridiculous. And then if you listen to the Secretary of Defense today out at the Reagan Center and what he was talking about, General Austin, and he uses all the right buzzwords. But, John, I can assure the American people that the Chinese have neutralized the largest Navy in the world, the United States Navy, with hypersonic weapons that can be launched anywhere in that theater of operations. In 5 minutes, they'll strike a target, and our fleet is absolutely blind to weapons coming in at Mach 5. And so the only thing they have is submarines and standoff air power, and the F-22s operating up at 60, 70,000 feet at Mach 2. But the fact is, we are in great trouble, and the Chinese own this country. Our listeners must understand what our Chinese policy is in the United States today under Biden. It's whatever China wants, China gets. Why did we have 50 executive orders within the first 5 or 10 days of the Biden administration? Because they all either benefit China directly or indirectly. Why did we take down the XL pipeline and take down our energy to make us now dependent on foreign resources when we were independent and the largest oil producer in the world? So all these things are deliberately to weaken us. And as you go through it, you see what has happened with the commercial banks, with all the issues that are going on in U.S. industry, telecommunications, telecom, big tech. All of those people are wired in to China because it's markets. They do not realize that the Democratic administration is trying to make us a communist state, and they're fast moving towards it. And whether they're deliberately doing it, they're deliberately supporting the Chinese economy. What I would do, in my corrective action, is we immediately, and it won't happen with this administration, but this is what President Trump needs to do, we immediately form an organization called the Pacific Area Treaty Organization, PATO. And that would consist of the big four that we're talking about now, of Australia, New Zealand, the United Kingdom, the U.S., we have Korea, we have Japan, we have the Philippines, we have Singapore, Thailand, India, and we would bring those nations together. They all probably wouldn't come right away, but we would form and declare and cut off all our trade with China. Now, right now, they're producing 80% of our pharmaceuticals. They own our medical industry. And if we don't start taking this aggressive action and acknowledge that China is the number one threat to us in the world, but how can they? When they elected Biden does everything they want. And Secretary of Defense Austin was talking about his concern about Taiwan right now. Well, they dominate us in Taiwan right now. And with that disaster surrender of Afghanistan and giving up the critical base that we gave up over there, that was a back door into China. Everything this administration has done has been to favor China. And we must acknowledge that the 2 million students that we have in the United States, Chinese students, between 1 and 2 million, that they're probably 80% of them are working for the PLA and taking that technology. And if you look at Google, you look at Apple, all the technology that is being shipped over there now, the artificial intelligence, etc. We can no longer afford that. We have met the enemy, and he is within our borders, and the Democratic Party is complicit. They all know in their leadership that this election was stolen, and only one Republican talks about it aside from us, at the leadership level, because you don't hear McConnell or Kevin McCarthy talking about it, or others, is the people like you that are such a definite, absolute necessity, because Fox doesn't talk about it, Newsmax doesn't talk about it, and of course the other nation stations that are already fundamentally NBC, ABC, CBS, the mainstream media, all of them ignore it. Yet they know it. They participated in it. And that's why they'll not bring the subject up. No one brings it up. Our judicial system is corrupt as can be. We know the Department of Justice, the FBI, the CIA, all those organizations are corrupt. But what was interesting was Secretary of Defense Austin was talking about cyber warfare and how important it was. And there's no way Cyber Command, CIA, FBI, DHS, any of these organizations could have been missing the hack jobs that went on our election system on November 3rd, 2020. It also went on in 5 January 2021 in the Georgia election. That went on the election 3.5 weeks ago in Virginia and New Jersey. The Republicans won in New Jersey, but with cyber warfare, they won that one. All I can do is say the dear Lord intervened in Virginia, and we pulled that one out. But they're still using hammer and scorecard on the electoral system and cyber warfare. That's the final analysis. The mail-in ballots, all of that are part of it, but China owns us now. They own our marketplace, our technology, our corporations. And you see what Jamie Dimon just did with his bank and inserting themselves into China. It's disgraceful. It is absolutely imperative that we break away completely, like we did in the Cold War against Russia, which eventually took Russia down, and economically what we do. They cannot survive without U.S. dollars and markets. It's absolutely imperative that we get the world lined up behind the Pacific Area Treaty Organization. You're not going to hear this from the Biden administration or Secretary Austin or any of the Secretary of State, Secretary of Treasury, none of them. They are complicit in letting China do whatever they want. And so we have great challenges in front of us, John. And every time you turn around, some other crisis is facing us. But we must take charge of this. It is the most serious situation we've ever had in our history, to include the Civil War.
You know, this is here comes one general out of left field, maybe, but I was looking at the driving distance from Emory University, which is now, according to several reports, absolutely stuffed with Chinese students who are all into virology. It's a half a mile from CDC's Atlanta headquarters. Half a mile.
Surprise.
I'm shocked, aren't you?
Yes.
Well, now, the big question is what to do about this. You know, a bunch of kids, 3 kids, escaped from a quarantine camp, I think in Australia. Anyway, they recovered the children, and all of them tested negative for the coronavirus. And I just want to toss this in there, too, because, look, China's behind all of this, so please go to jellyfish.news and keep paging over until you come to the article that says, with yes votes on a federal vaccine database, 80 Republicans want to seal your fate, seal theirs, and vote them out. It's not an article by Jennifer Oliver O'Connell. And anyway, I want you to see where we're headed here.
I rest my case, John.
Oh my gosh. General, what to do? Well, only one thing. Recover the stolen election and begin ejecting and arresting people. I don't see any way around it. I wish I did, but I don't. Over to you.
The American people have got to, I don't either. That's the only constitutional way. The American people have got to understand how serious this is and what we're facing. They're going to try to get rid of Harris as a vice president because she's a disaster and put in Hillary. And then Biden will resign and Hillary will move up and be the president, and then they'll slip in Michelle Obama, and their intent that's BO's Barack Obama's game plan. He is running this in the United States. It is a global shadow government that is manipulating the world, and what's going on down in Australia is absolutely sickening. Of all places, I never would have thought it would have been Australia. But that's the situation we are in. The mandatory vaccinations. It's going to be confirmed, I think, soon, because you're going to have Dr. Sellen up, and he's going to point out more signals that are pointing that this was a deliberate biological attack. But from a military point of view and understanding their doctrine, I don't worry about the technological. I worry about what they've done. They have done, without any kinetic warfare, taken over a majority part of the U.S., and the American people do not know it. Although I saw a poll that had 98% of the people believe that the election was a fraudulent election. It wasn't a large database. But the American people, through what you are doing, John, and I cannot commend you enough, and the courage for what you are doing to let the American people know the dangers that we are facing. But we must work, and it's important that we have this dialogue. We are not tin hats. The evidence is clear-cut, and the more they can put the control on the mandatory vaccinations, although we've seen finally 2 or 3 judges have struck them down, it will go to the Supreme Court, but we have a problem on the Supreme Court. I don't want to go through it person by person, but that is going to come to them. And they turned down the opportunity when Texas had that case of 18 other states writing in with them when they wouldn't hear it. But we as Americans, we the people, those 3 huge letters on our Declaration of Independence, we the people have got to do this. There's not going to be a knight on a white stallion come riding in on it. We the people have got to do that. President Trump is an extremely important player on this because he's talking about it. But we're not getting help from those 80 Republicans that voted to put us every person's medical records. This is exactly what happened. The mask has become the Star of David from Hitler's days. They are using the same game plan. And so we, the people, must be aware of what is going on and why they're trying to take this new virus that's coming out, variation that isn't very serious, in my opinion, and not let them lock us up again. And we must stop the mandatory vaccinations. It is very serious. And the financials that Jamie Dimon and the banks are continuing to do, we have got to bring those jobs back to America. And that's why China was complicit in taking this election so they could change that. And the global shadow government, along with the Obama crowd, or Biden as we call them now, was complicit in it, in the election, in those 6 battleground states. But we must take it back. It is imperative. All the other things are secondary to retaking the election back. And all these people must stand up and send their congressmen to demand that we have the audits in these 6 battleground states. Let's not let them get away with just talking tough. We've got to make action. And even though they don't control both the Senate and the House, they've got to be far more aggressive and far more active to what's going on around them.
Well, it looks like we have our work cut out for us, doesn't it? I don't think anybody's going to get out of doing something. Maybe a lot, maybe a little, but everybody's going to have to do something. We're going to have to be real Americans again. We got soft. We had a great lifestyle over here. complained mostly about, well, you know, my self-esteem's pretty low because I haven't succeeded as much as some of these other people around me. That's not a problem. That's motivation. But we're going to have to cowboy and cowgirl up now, or we're going to lose this thing. General, in the last couple of minutes that we have here, all right, they stole the election. They ushered in their virus. They've got the formerly free world on lockdown. What do you think the next shoe to drop might be? Or is that the big question that we're still trying to answer?
Well, I think it's going to be in the Olympics. If we don't, one point I wanted to cover, we must not attend the Olympics. We must demand, I don't think it's going to be this administration, but they are going to use the Olympics in February in China as another spreader. So the world shows up for the Olympics, and they're going to spread another vaccine that is going to disrupt the midterm elections for 2022. That, to me, is the next shoe that's going to drop on us, John. But that's